So today I'm here with Peter Rake, who's our Global Director of Integration. He is one of our senior leaders out of the Denver office, and we're here to talk about IBcon and why IBcon is such an important event to Switch, but also to the industry, and also to talk about what we're doing for IBcon in 2020. So hi Peter, how are you?
Hey Deb, I'm good. Yeah, there's a lot of reminiscing. It's been many years we've been attending IBcon, and it's a bit of a bummer this year as the global pandemic with us.
So Peter, tell me about IBcon and some of the memories you have, and what was the first IBcon you went to? What was really great about it? What captured your attention, and how's it changed over the years?
Yeah, well, it takes me back. It was 2011 actually. I happened to go across to Orlando, Florida, and I actually went there for Infocom, and I actually tripped over IBcon actually because it was co-hosted, and we had a couple of people that were attending it. So I went down at a very tiny outskirts of the Infocom event. So it was actually very cool, but to see I guess the space that we were talking about and what was emerging for us, it was actually really cool to see that tech in one pavilion. Yeah, obviously since that time, so coming up nine years or so, the attendance, the scale, it's been pretty impressive to watch it grow from way back then.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that's really fantastic about IBcon is not the things that change, but actually the things that stay the same. So my first IBcon was 2012, and maybe I went to IBcon because you came back from the 2011 event and told me about it, and I went to Vegas in 2012. I'd come via Hong Kong. I'm sure I had some horrendous bird flu because I was the sickest I've ever been. It was 110 degrees in the shade. I was so ill. I was so worried about passing this illness on to anybody. I had the hand sanitizer and I was passing that out to everybody. The thing that was most striking about it was there was only about 200 or 300 people. Every single person that was attending that event, except for myself, was a white man aged between 45 and 60. So, but many of those same people are still attending today, the real stalwarts of the industry. But what I love about what's changed is all the young people that are coming in, the people that really see the opportunities in this industry, and people coming from all over the world, people flying from Australia, from the UK. Yeah, I think that's what's really fantastic about it. It is the number one event for people that are learning about smart building tech, and they're learning from each other.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I fall into that white dudes category, I guess, of the industry that I've gravitated in and lived and breathed for so many years. And it is good to see. And it's actually been the place to network with all those, the legends of the industry, actually. So I've always quite enjoyed those seminars. We never got an opportunity to catch up with all of the people that we were working with, the influencers of the industry. So again, this year it's going to be probably, sad to miss, but it's a great networking opportunity. The classes and the content has improved over the years as well.
And I think, Peter, your ability to network is legendary and known certainly around Switch circles, as an ability to party as hard as they come and then still show up and put in a full day the next day.
That's right. There's only 24 hours in the day, and we need to stretch that out to 20 some, and then show up the next day at the booth.
Yeah, exactly. So what will you miss this year, apart from the networking and the endless lineup of drinks? What will you really miss?
I think I actually just look forward to it every year to just see who's one-upping each other in the space, I guess, and I guess stretching that innovation about moving this industry, this space that's so slow to adopt technology. And we, us and many others have had platforms out there that are ready to scale, and it's always good to walk around the halls to see any of this new tech and what could be the next big thing, and we've seen things like digital twin come out of these sorts of events, and again, still traction's slow, but I feel like every year it's just got a little bit more. And you and I always sat back after and would reflect on a Realcomm event and go, next year's going to be the year. Next year's going to be the year. So I still hold on to that as next year's going to be the year of mass adoption. We've obviously got really good clients of ours who are adopting it across their portfolios. But it'd be great to see the entire industry embrace that, because it's not the technology, it's the limitations. I think it's often just the mindsets and potentially the budgets and the information and education around what the opportunities are adopting this sort of tech across a portfolio of buildings.
So those are the things that we'll miss from Ivycon. Let's talk about the things that we won't miss. So I can talk about a couple of things that I won't miss. So one of the things I won't miss is the fact that there's 7 tracks of education. Some of it's really, really fantastic, and some of it is, quite frankly, a bit meh. And I won't miss that juggling of trying to find the nuggets of really gold content that you really want to attend, the bits that are like really game-changing for our industry, and trying to filter and siphon through all of that content to work out which bits that we should attend. So that's one of the things that I won't miss. And the other bit that I won't miss is packing up. So last year, as you'll recall, Peter, we had a fantastic booth. We had the LED wall. We were basically portraying our vision for digital facilities management on that LED wall. The forklift managed to back through the screen. We had to fly another screen in from Miami. So the dramas of running a trade booth I won't miss, and I won't miss the packing up, which is that bit where you get to the end and it's just exhausting to try and figure out how to keep the enthusiasm going to get everything packed properly and then shipped out of there, and then get everyone onto a plane and get them home safely. And I think that's the one thing that I'm looking forward to, how conferences can reinvent themselves. So I think this 2020, I don't know about you, Peter, but I feel like conferences as we know it might end up being reinvented from 2020.
Yeah, I agree. I think conferences and concerts are probably the big things I think that we're going to see change beyond 2020. It's like rooms full of people for at least the short term, I think, are just not going to be non-existent. So that's what I mean. It's going to fuel some innovation. And in parts of our space, I think COVID hasn't been a bad thing for innovation in our space and adoption of technology. And I think a conference is just going to be another spin on that. People still are hungry for getting that information. They want to be continually improving themselves and educating themselves, and we're just going to have to figure out another style or another forum to get that information into the hands of the people that need it.
And we already saw that coming before COVID. I mean, we didn't see COVID coming, but we perceived that there was going to be a need for a different way of serving that education into small curated groups, and bringing people to Denver and immersing them in our team. And so I think there's some hugely valuable kind of insights out of these conferences. First of all, it's just what's everybody else doing. There's the new ideas and meeting with people and the inspiration that comes from that. There's the networking, and then there's the content. So I think if you separate those things out, there's definitely innovative ways of doing those things. And I think the conferences probably have to be really thinking hard about how they're going to reemerge from the post-COVID world with something that a business model and ways of meeting the market.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, shipping things around the country and all of that, massive task to set up those shows. I think now, especially how connected we are in the world, and thank God for the internet and the bandwidth we can do. It's like, doing these sorts of things like we're doing now in real time. I mean, it's quite amazing the tech we've got available to us in 2020.
So let's talk about what Switch got coming up, and what are we really excited about to launch at IBcon and talk about at IBcon.
Well, I'm really excited about just extending the Switch platform. I mean, everyone's, that has attended, I'm sure, are familiar at least with us, especially the veterans that we referenced earlier, very familiar with it. But I really feel like our DX³ product really needs to shine and get in front of more of the industry, because the things, and I mean personally for me, being boots on the ground and in the trenches to help our clients get their buildings connected and get all the the data that's their data out of their systems into the hands of the people that need it, has been a struggle. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why this technology hasn't been as adopted as we'd expect. It's because a lot of the building owners that we associate with actually don't have access to it. They're very reliant on their vendors, and that has sort of really shown this year, where sites now don't have any facilities teams or people on hand. So the DX³ product now being able to digitally assess your buildings remotely will give you that understanding. So it would have been really exciting, or it's going to be really exciting, to showcase that and the abilities of what that can tell you straight out of the box. Plug and play, put it onto your network, and we'll assess what ability we've got to get data out of your building.
I mean, we've been talking about smart buildings in the US since 2012, and there hasn't been any real acceleration. It's been a steady increase year on year, as more and more people kind of understand the value of smart connected buildings and digitization of the data, so that you can actually use analytics and make really smart decisions using that data. But what we're seeing, particularly in Asia, what I'm seeing is lots of companies who totally understand that the value of that data is really going to be intrinsically linked to the success of their company in the future. They haven't kind of figured out yet why or what the revenue models are going to be, but they know they have to collect the data themselves. And so I think that DX³ product is going to be so important for accelerating the collection of clients, real estate clients, to collect their own data and put it into their own data warehouse, data lake, whatever you want to call it, so that they can add their own applications, add their own intelligence, add their own IP, and eventually add revenue models that will potentially be as valuable as the real estate itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just getting their hands on the data, I think that's been the biggest telling thing for us as we've rolled out, over the years. So I feel like this is part of the way, part of the solution. And I just think our integrations, it would be, great for us to showcase. Obviously, it won't be in person, but online we'll do our best to show people about other integrations. Now we're getting so much inquiry for people that have an internet, a digital Internet of Things, sort of digital device that can, be pumping data out. But what do you do with the data from, a single isolated sort of proprietary style sensor, when you can put it into a platform like ours and get some, true actionable insight, from that data? So I think a lot more of our integrations will be cool to showcase at this year's IBcon as well, and complementary to the DX³, because it's not just about building management systems. I mean, that's probably the thing that steals a lot of the limelight. But the reality for us now, as we've evolved in this last 12 months, we're now getting information from wireless access points, access control systems, lighting control systems, building management systems, obviously sub-metering systems, room booking systems. So we're giving our clients now this very comprehensive view of the data that's coming out of their buildings. These are big data pumps, these big, huge hundreds of $1 million assets. And we're finally getting to a place where, this integration is really benefiting our clients from, all this insight from a maintenance, proactive maintenance perspective, going through to predictive almost.
Why is it so hard? I mean, Siemens, Schneider, Honeywell, Johnson Controls, they've all been doing this for years. Why is this not done before now? Why is it so hard for a big client like, Boston Properties Group or Oxford Properties or Brookfield? Why is it so hard for them to actually get their hands on their own data?
Yeah, good question. I think it's just because of the way you don't have to change. I mean, it's painful to change. It's like going out and getting fit. I do it myself. I go through these highs and lows, and then there's times where I get on and I do it, but it's hard work. And I think some of these systems take a bit of a back seat. I think obviously what is prime in these buildings is looking after the tenants and making sure the facade and the look of the buildings, really amazing. But it's not until something breaks and then you've got tenants that are now disrupted by something breaking. I think that's where people are now starting to put, the tenant totally front of mind. So obviously the building's an asset and it needs to be immaculate as well. But I feel like now our clients are doing more with data to be able to predict and proactively get in front of any of these issues. But the problem is there's so many disparate systems across a building portfolio, and often none of them interact with one another. So a lot of these other larger companies that you mentioned there aren't very agile about additional integrations, right? They've stuck to their knitting for many, many years about just doing that, and that's fine. And a lot of them are now adopting open protocols, which is great for companies like ours that have these data aggregation platforms. But it's really about, well, how do I get now, especially with cyber's taken a lot of the headlines and sucked a lot of the oxygen out of for budgets that we could have with the operations team. Cyber's often done at an enterprise level, and our type of sale is often done just at the building level. So that also I think makes it a little harder. But it's also then, what compatible devices do I have across my portfolio, and how do you do that assessment? And that takes us back to Dx³ again. How can I do that assessment of what do I have in my buildings today that I can actually pull data out, and now I can start to look at standing up capital projects, and now I'll look at wireless access point integration. I'll talk about putting things onto a converged network. So I think that's why it's hard. It takes a decent amount. You need a certain amount of subject matter experts within your own team or trusted external vendors that really get how these systems come together, these master systems integrators. So now I certainly feel for everyone out there, if you haven't done it, it's quite a journey to embark on, but it's very doable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the one thing that, I'm the most proud of, is the team that we've built behind our technology that actually, people like yourself that actually help our clients to accelerate this. Because, if it was easy, everyone would have done it by now. Or somebody would have come out with a new IoT sensor that did it all. But the fact of the matter is you've got to integrate all the existing systems as well as those new ones. It's not easy, the different protocols. I think some manufacturers have made it deliberately difficult but prior to now to make that integration happen. It wasn't in their best interest to make that a simple thing. So I think the one thing that the pandemic and 2020 has taught us is the value of having those buildings connected and data flowing, is that you would have instantly known what was going on in the buildings, and you would have been able to instantly hibernate those buildings. There's been a number of articles come out in the last week, and I had a very depressing phone call with somebody out of New York who was basically saying that they've had no savings out of their buildings in 2020 because the leases basically linked to service levels, and if they'd turned anything off, then the tenants would have been looking for some sort of discounts or relief, and so they just left everything running, which I think is honestly one of the biggest missed opportunities I can ever imagine, and seems quite sad. I was predicting the opposite. I was predicting the GRESB numbers for 2020 were going to be out of the park, and everybody would be using that as a benchmark to try and get back to for the next 20 years.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a sad state of affairs when you see, especially when we get all the statistics there for, the greenhouse gas and carbon footprints, and buildings are huge energy hogs. So to leave them running when they're not occupied, and I guess having a fear that your clients will come back to you for these savings. I mean, that's some ways fair enough, but to have the building running as though it's fully occupied is, throwing good money after bad.
So just to finish up, any big predictions for what you think is going to come, any surprises or predictions out of Ivycon for 2020, things that you think our clients will be coming into this particular conference looking for immediate solutions, or anything that you might not have seen? I mean, the last year was all digital twin. Is that going to be the flavor of 2020, or do you think there'll be something that will take that highlight and that headline away from the digital twin.
No, I think digital twin is going to be still the same. I think it's still going to have a bit of a headline, but I think this year what I'm looking forward to is that I think a couple of years of digital twin, people understand a little bit more about it. I think there was a little bit of time before the industry understood, because I think truly there's probably 3 or 4 definitions of the digital twin, and people are trying to get their hands around it. So I'm looking forward to that being showcased. Faster delivery times. I mean, we know internally for us, so I'm hoping to see there's a little bit more of that. I know we're going to have a real credible display of onboarding buildings faster, which I think will help fuel the appetite to get people onto a platform like Switch across their entire portfolio. So I'm looking forward to any other tech and innovation around that piece, because I think once you've got the data flowing, analytics and those things can come secondary to that. I think there's a lot of UIs out there, there's a lot of integrations, and there's some new tech. MQTT is gaining some momentum, so I'm excited to see any products that are out of the box communicating like that, and then just more plug and play sensors. So the barriers to entry to get its sensors off the shelf that plug in and connect to something are there too. So it'd be cool to see any other innovative tech there regarding occupancy, and things like that we always get asked, occupancy and going back to work and well-being. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I think that's my big prediction for 2021 and beyond is, post-COVID, real estate owners and operators are going to have to work out how to get people back into buildings. We've always had tenant engagement apps around amenities and services in the buildings, but I think that tenant engagement is going to have to extend to metrics and really hard KPIs around what's going on in the buildings in terms of density, occupancy, proximity numbers, indoor air quality, all of the things that basically give people an assurance that the building is monitored, therefore somebody's looking at my safety, health and well-being, therefore I've got a level of lowered risk around coming back to work, and I feel much more comfortable and secure going back into buildings, just knowing that somebody's monitoring that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I think, there'll be a lot about that. Actually, that takes me to another product line that I'm hoping to see more, is that visitor engagement. Just I'm coming into a building and we've had, the building owners have had this data for a long time, and I think serving it up now, to their tenancies and the occupants of the buildings, it's just going to help them and, help them engage more with the occupants of the building. So yeah, that's another tech that I'd like to see evolve.
And I think the other prediction I have is, you and I know what this data means for technicians and engineers and people that, are highly technical and can interpret the data. But there's a bunch of other stakeholders that are going to start taking a really keen interest in this data, right from the board down to the senior management, the CFO, for example, and the CMO. And then the casual visitor, the person who walks into a building and literally has 12 seconds while they're waiting for the lift to be able to absorb the information, and they're not going to be able to unpack technical information. So I think the data that we're collecting is going to have to be served up in a whole bunch of different ways for different stakeholders. Same data, but just making it meaningful for different groups across the organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Anything else to finish up on? Any big things to reveal?
No. I think we'll save that for the show. I think everyone should be, pretty excited, and our online presence, I look forward to virtually seeing you there.
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to hold you to a 3 a.m. bender just so that we can have you the next morning turning up looking a little bit shabby, but just as cheerful.
Yep, live stream that. We could live stream, a couple of drinks with Peter Rake.
Yeah, well, it might be interesting to measure the CO2 levels in your office. All right, thanks for joining us, Peter, and good luck with Ivycon this year.
Absolutely. Good to chat, Deb. Bye.
Bye.